Hey everybody, I'm Jim Stavridis, the Dean of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and I want to give you a really quick report on how things went over the past weekend, which was graduation weekend here at Tufts University. This is the Tufts commencement brochure. But then we also had the Fletcher School's graduation. Now this is a historical artifact. This is the program from the graduation of 1984, when your dean received his PhD. So it was an amazing experience for me to come back 30 years on and get a chance to award over 300 diplomas. By the way, this is my transcript from my time as a student at the Fletcher School, and it remains highly confidential. Let me tell you a little bit about this great graduation ceremony we had. We had my very good friend, Dr. Rajiv Shah. He's the director of USAID, and he gave an amazing speech that really tied to the theme of the weekend, which is the impact of Fletcher students.
You know, a few weeks ago, our deputy administrator, Mark Fierstein, Fletcher class 87, arrived in the White House Situation Room for a dead serious meeting on the crisis in Ukraine. At the table, he met a classmate from Fletcher, whom he hadn't seen in 2.5 decades. They started talking about this great institution, and it turned out that a third of those folks in the sit room that day had studied in the Hall of Flags. So, I have learned that you are not referred to as the Fletcher Mafia for nothing. Nearly every major initiative we've launched, frankly, at USAID, of which I'm very proud, seems to be run by a Fletcher grad. And it wasn't fully, I didn't fully appreciate this until I was preparing to be here today, that I really internalized the power that you all hold over our agency. In fact, all along, I thought I was in charge.
We also had alumna, Farah Pandith, had a chance to talk a little bit about violent extremism.
Like many of you, when you came here, you were exposed to things that made you think differently. As I sat by that river, I remember thinking about how Dr. Hess had explained the horizontal and vertical movements of people, and military innovation, and the Taklamakan Desert, and the influence of the Silk Road. And there I was, right there, as special representative to Muslim communities, speaking to youth influenced by ideas that came from outside of their communities, ideas that changed their sense of self, and whose powerful influence even struck Boylston Street a year ago. The work that you will do in your careers may be, like mine, unnamed right now. There are allies we yet do not know, and there are enemies yet to be actualized. There will be tools we haven't discovered and opportunities we could not have imagined. And there will be new borders and old conflicts.
Another wonderful aspect of these kind of weekends is a chance to talk to alumni who come back from all over the world.
I actually flew in from Kuwait this morning, 6:30 a.m., and then got to National to get here. So
Fabulous.
I'm loving it. I think my time so far has already been really wonderful.
Fabulous. And now you're with the U.S. government.
Yes.
You've been a Presidential Management Fellow, which is a very big deal. Now you're full-time with the government. Tell us what you're working on these days.
Sure. I work in the Office of the Secretary of Defense for cyber policy, and these days I've been working a lot on our Middle Eastern cyber defense partnerships.
Wow. You know, you're, of course, an Indian citizen working for BP in London, but I know you've been following the election in India, which is amazing. The largest democratic event in the history of mankind. What's your snapshot of the post-election mood in India, Dev?
It's sort of early days, but I have to say, based on what I've seen in the last 24 hours, there is a feeling of euphoria in India. That's a euphoria because people really believe there can be a massive change, because there's a huge mandate for the new government.
So tell us what you're doing in Washington. What's going on in your life, Andrea?
So I work for the State Department, the Bureau of African Affairs. I work on counterterrorism policy and programs in Africa.
Wow.
And this is a a big kind of moment for me because 5 years ago I wrote my Fletcher thesis on how we could do things better and different in Africa, and I kind of have had this amazing opportunity to go and implement my thesis on the ground doing civil military training in Africa, and now I work at State doing the policy and oversight of our program management.
We also had the class of 1964 here celebrating their 50th anniversary, and by the way, they were the top class in terms of giving percentages. The biggest class represented, by the way, was the class of 2009. Well, as we all know, the faculty are the heart and soul of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and we had a couple of very, very wonderful awards. One was bittersweet. It was the fact that we awarded Professor Emeritus status to Professor Bill Mumop, who's retiring after having led our environmental program here for over 2 decades. We're going to miss Bill full-time, but he'll remain very connected to the school, and we're very proud of Professor Emeritus Bill Mumop. Additionally, the extremely highly coveted Paddock Award, named after Professor Jim Paddock, who passed away in untimely fashion a few years ago. The Paddock Award is given every year to the top teacher at the Fletcher School, and it's awarded by the students. And I was very proud to present that to Professor Bill Martell, who is also just announced for tenure. We had a terrific chance also to hear from a wonderful young alumna who gave one of the 2 speeches by students. One was by Bob Lynch, the other was by Amy Tan. And Amy Tan's speech touched me deeply when she said that at the Fletcher School, you can never be invisible.
This environment cultivates a deep sense of belonging, and this propels us to be as extraordinary as the people that believe in us think we are. Because at Fletcher, we are not afraid of a little bit of brokenness. In fact, we will carry you and your broken ankle over the ice and snow through that perpetual winter, just so that you can make it to your study group meeting on time. Because here, it is impossible to be invisible. After we leave today, we will be entering a world where hugs and a cookie do not count as currency. We will transform once again, and we may feel like outsiders because of the privilege of our degrees or the choice of our vocation. We will fall in love with different institutions, different people, and new ideas. But we will step into that world together, and this love will remain.
Well, that's a quick roundup from the Dean with a few wonderful photos and interviews cut into it. If you want to experience essentially the entire graduation and see some of the speeches, and I highly commend them, go to the website. We had a wonderful weekend graduation, 300 graduates from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. Thanks a lot.